Hi folks, this is Chris. Welcome back to my channel, Punk and Paisley. If there is a distorted guitar or fuzzy guitar playing sometime between around 1965 and 1990 or so, we're going to discuss that here. Sometimes I like to discuss releases in and of their time and the impact that they had and entire albums by a band. And other times I'm going to shine a light where I think very few music YouTubers do, which is into the compilation. A lot of this rare music is best available to you in compilation format, and I have a corker of a suggestion for you today and a review of an album called Mexican Rumble. There's actually a much longer title than that, an unwieldy title. Santo presents Mexican Rock and Roll Rumble and Psych Out South of the Border. Whew! And that is actually, that's a fair description of what you've got on this record. There's a claim on Discogs that this record was released in 1987. It is a clear bootleg. I'm not sure how anybody determined that it came out in 1987 unless they found some psych zine in the 80s that had a new review or that sort of thing. I found this at my favorite record store at the time in Philadelphia in the 1990s, probably in the mid-90s. I think it was new at the time. And that store would get the bootlegs. That store would get the 90s bootlegs of 70s and 80s punk and hardcore, those compilations, which I'll definitely be talking about on the channel. And it would also get the 80s, 90s releases of 60s garage and psych bootlegs. I did not ask any questions. I would just buy what I was interested in and was very happy that they were there. And they were at such reasonable prices that when you see something like, hey, it's a bunch of Mexican bands that are apparently having a freak out, I want to hear that. Now, as it turns out, this compilation is one of very mainstream Mexican bands, the most famous Mexican rock and roll bands from the late 50s through the mid 60s. You've got Los Locos del Ritmo, Los Rockin' Devils, Los Hooligans, Los Boppers, Los Apsun, Los Crazy Boys, Los Sinners. Eventually I made my way to Mexico, Central Mexico, and ended up looking up and buying a lot of CDs of these bands, and they are by and large pretty much mainstream into garage rock. Not overly distorted stuff, and not yet, although Mexico gets its garage bands and its psych bands as well as anybody, not quite there yet. These were very mainstream rock and roll bands doing extremely credible versions of American style rock and roll. But then there's a few real gems on here. Now, I'm not going to do the track-by-track 1 to 10 rating breakdown that I've done on another album review and will do in the future, because that doesn't give you the whole picture here. I believe there's 17 tracks, and when I did that, because there are a few weaker ones, the number came down to just below a 7, and I gave the package, which I'll talk about in a minute, a 7, which I like to factor into my numeric rating of an album as well. And that doesn't tell the whole story, because I think there are 3 tracks on here that I rated a 10. I think there are 3 tracks I rated a 9, and we can go through some of those with you. Los Apsun, one of the most famous Mexican rock and roll bands, does a cover of Satisfaction, the Stones song, the Stones classic Satisfaction, which is fantastic. Maybe better than the original. It's a little heavier, a little slower. I love it. Nice meaty cover there. There is a cover again by them of Susie Q, the Dale Hawkins classic. I may mention sometime I did get to meet Dale Hawkins at one point in the 90s, which was very cool. That's another story for another time. There is La Novia de mi Mejor Amigo. There's a little Jesse's Girl action from Los Sinners. Not a bad track. Los Locos del Ritmo do an incredible organ-driven cover of Hey Joe, but it is not the Hendrix Hey Joe. They're doing the up-tempo The Leaves Hey Joe, which was a regional hit in '66 in parts of the United States prior to the Hendrix slower version that more people are familiar with. There's Los Rockin' Devils, very funny, Pero Lo Nudo with panting dog sounds. And then Los Opson are back again with El Hombre Frio, in which they have adopted the Mr. Clean theme to a Latin-flavored pop rock song, and I just makes me bounce around the room. It's a wonderful inclusion on the album. Juanita Banana by Los Hooligans is the one, I think, the weakest track. In the same way that El Hombre Frio is weird in a positive sense, Juanita Banana is weird in a negative sense. I guess it's good to hear once. But man, and then after that, and maybe to play it for your friends later, the way you sometimes you smell spoiled milk, and you go, oh God, that's awful. And then there's a human compulsion for some reason to call your friend or your relative over and say, oh, smell this. It's you got to smell this. This is particularly pungent. And then there's two really interesting tracks, which the compiler, obviously a record collector, thought were interesting enough to include on a Mexican-themed record, despite the fact that neither band is Mexican. The Pets, or Los Pets from Venezuela, have a demented cover of The Doors' Hello, I Love You, in which it's produced with everything going off into the red, and will peel the paint off of the walls of your home, and I therefore highest recommendation. And then interestingly, Paul Revere and the Raiders, the American band, have a rare track on here that this guy, he's even, I'm saying guy because there's no way on earth that this is not a white American male who compiled this, and he's a hot rod guy, evidently. There's something that goes hand in hand when you get the guys who were the 60s 45 collectors, especially if they were into at all soul, or especially blue-eyed soul, the doo-wop, the Beach Boys, the Jan and Dean, and you know that these would also be the guys with they would have the plastic model kits of Big Daddy Roth cars. You know, you'd have a Rat Fink. The same guy would absolutely have that. The car culture and this 45 culture went hand in hand, and we see that with the Paul Revere and the Raiders track, because he has put this SS 396 track, which is a reference to a muscle car, a Chrysler, which was a rare track, non-album track that would have been difficult for people to hear from the great Paul Revere and the Raiders, about whom I will have more to say in future videos. Years later, I was handling the sort of estate of a soul collector who was selling a lot of exactly what I mentioned earlier. He had not only a massive collection of African-American soul records, but he was also into the Blue-Eyed Soul and the Beach Boys and all the car 45s. Just a poster child for what I was just describing. And among the records was a copy of SS 396, very clean. This is basically a near mint copy. Apparently this was sent out to, this is a promo, and was apparently sent out to Chrysler dealers, so not the most common single. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, I'm snapping that up, because I know what this is, and I know what it is solely because I bought a copy of Mexican Rumble. The downside of the compilation, according to the Discogs entry, that there was just a plain white cover, to which were wheat pasted, basically, a couple of photocopied sheets of paper. And I didn't even get the cover. My copy doesn't even have the cover. I just have photocopied sheets of paper. This is all I got. I misremembered this being a folded over sheet of paper, but it's actually 2 sheets of paper that were stuck in the plastic outer sleeve. There's no inner sleeve, and I assume that the pressing plant gave somebody gave you the paper sleeve by default, or else I'm assuming this guy would have rejected that too. And there's a cheaply photocopied 7-inch of Los Locos del Ritmo here, and really this font, the font on here screams late 80s, early 90s. But before people had PCs and their own printers at home, a lot of people had these electric typewriters that had some memory. It was sort of these word processors that were still analog, and you only had a couple of different fonts to choose from. They had little wheels that they would print from and a limited number of possible characters. And this font just screams that. Somebody did this on their like IBM Selectric that they probably bought in 1986 or so. And then it's just a photocopied 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that got inserted. So this is in this so-called Santo Records label, which has no other listings on Discogs. I think this was a one-off. And my highest recommendation, it's not all killer tracks. It is not. There were a few that are, it's a cool introduction by and large to your big time early to mid 60s Mexican rock and roll bands. There's generally quality material. There's a weird cover of Danny Boy on here, which I would rate about a 5. There's some basic rock and roll, and some of it's pretty good, and you get the big names of Mexican rock and roll, but the highs are so high, and the rarity factor for what you're getting pushes this compilation over the top. The 7 or 8 of the 17 tracks that are big time winners are big time winners and make the album more than worth it for the garage psych collector. I'm seeing that about the cheapest you're going to get away with this in the United States right now is about $24 plus postage on Discogs. You might run in case this video actually takes off and it gets more hits, that would only go up. So, run, don't walk, to use the Ventures reference. And I hope you enjoy. I'm going to be bringing you on Punk and Paisley. My name's Chris again. Going to be bringing you a lot more of these reviews of the massive number of this type of compilation that I have. The hits and misses, I'm going to bring a lot more of them to you. If you have recommendations or requests, you know what to do. Leave it in the comments. Likes and subscriptions are always welcome. And until next time, kids, keep on rocking in the unfree world.